trust the police department after what your family has been through?
No, sir. No, never.
Can anything change that?
I don't think so. Not now.
If you knew who harmed her, would you tell us?
Absolutely.
If she was dead right now and you knew, would you tell us?
I don't know.
Did you harm her?
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
Greed is an incredibly powerful emotion, and it can quickly turn someone you thought you knew well into a person you don't recognize. In this first case, it turns a friendly female cop into a cold-blooded killer. If there's anything we have learned about law enforcement officers, especially in recent years, it's that they are unfortunately not all trustworthy people. The following stories tell the tale of 3 corrupt cops who did things that were horrible enough to get themselves not only removed from the force, but put behind bars.
A tragic update out of Escambia County, Florida tonight. The body of a private investigator missing for more than a month has been found.
Saying that body they found around noon today is believed to be that of Taylor Wright.
Deputies have charged Wright's friend, Ashley MacArthur, with second-degree murder.
Ashley MacArthur and Taylor Wright were good friends from Florida, who both worked in the field of criminal justice. Taylor was a private investigator and Ashley was a crime scene technician. So they were both people who knew the legal system well and had a good understanding about how criminal cases work, especially cases involving murder. So it's safe to say that the fact that they would both be the center of a very famous and divisive criminal case in 2017 was pretty ironic.
Hey, Zach, your wife is, she's being arrested this evening and charged with murder.
What?
But let's start by taking a look into Taylor Wright and what kind of person she was. Taylor was a 33-year-old mother of 1 child, a 10-year-old baby boy. In 2017, she and her ex-husband were in the middle of a pretty messy divorce and custody battle over their child. This made life very stressful for Taylor, but she ended up finding true friendship and support, and eventually love with someone else this time around. This person was a woman named Cassandra Waller. The two really hit it off, and it wasn't long before they were pretty serious about one another.
We met on an online dating app. We were in a relationship for a short period of time, but enough time to have sincere feelings and to say that I love this person, and she's told me she loved me back.
Both Cassandra and Taylor's good friend Ashley were well aware that this was a difficult time in Taylor's life. Not only was she under a lot of stress and pressure because of her divorce, but she had other problems going on as well. She was battling a substance use disorder and was also having some money issues as well. Taylor had actually taken a large portion of money out of the bank account that she shared with her soon-to-be ex-husband so that he would not be able to access it, at least for the time being. This meant that Taylor would need to find another place for that money until the legal proceedings with her divorce were over. What she ended up doing was giving the money to Ashley and telling her to hold on to it just for a temporary basis. Ashley agreed to do this and deposited the money into her own account. The agreement was that Ashley was only holding on to this money for Taylor temporarily. Clearly, Taylor must have had complete trust in Ashley in order to rely on this money for her. But the whole arrangement that she had made with Ashley apparently didn't going the way she had planned. This was because by the time she really needed the money back, Ashley wasn't cooperating. This was causing a lot of anxiety for Taylor. After all, she was going to be due in court and she could possibly get into legal trouble if there was a large sum of money just strangely missing from her and her husband's joint account.
So the night before Taylor went missing, we went out to eat, and Taylor was just really stressed out. She was talking about how Ashley was holding on to this money, that Taylor needed to get it back, and she felt awkward about it. She felt like something wasn't right.
What reason would Ashley have for not just giving the money back the way that they had arranged? Things sounded sketchy, but finally Ashley agreed to go to the bank with Taylor to make the transfer and take care of this matter for good. On the morning that they had planned to go to the bank, Cassandra watched as Ashley pulled up to pick up Taylor from her house. Everything seemed normal. As far as she knew, they were just going to the bank and would be back later that day.
And we gave each other a hug and a kiss. And at that time, I'm walking out of my driveway. Ashley pulls up. I say, "Hey, Ash." And she's like, "Hey, Cassandra." And I said, "You guys have a good day." I got in my car and I drove away. That was the last time I ever saw Taylor.
Taylor did not come back later that day the way she had planned. Instead, Cassandra got a call from Ashley, who told her that she and Taylor had decided to go out to the country to ride horses and just relax for a little bit together. While Taylor hadn't said anything about this plan, this was still pretty normal and didn't give Cassandra any real reason to worry. But then, later that evening, Cassandra received some text messages from Taylor that really upset her. Basically, Taylor said that she needed some time and space to get her life together, and it sounded a lot like she was considering breaking up with her. Obviously, this was not what Cassandra had been expecting to hear and made her wonder what had changed.
She needs time to herself, and she's not including her partner, and that hurt my feelings.
Taylor's seemingly abrupt messages about wanting time to herself made Cassandra angry and upset. But that didn't mean that she didn't still care about Taylor or wasn't concerned about her, so she continued to reach out to her. But as the days went by and still Taylor hadn't gotten back with her, Cassandra started to worry that maybe there was something bigger going on here. Sure enough, not long after, Taylor was reported missing, and Cassandra was the first person that detectives were interested in talking to.
Trying to find out why your girlfriend's disappeared.
And here I am in this room that they would use to interrogate people. And it's padded walls. It's a place you don't want to be.
So now, not only is Cassandra's partner missing, but the cops are acting like they think she could have something to do with Taylor's disappearance. Cassandra assures them that she doesn't know where Taylor is and had absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance.
Can't help but be scared that I'm gonna get in trouble for something that I did when I was trying to.
But they ask her some pretty disturbing questions that seem to suggest that they are at least considering the possibility that Taylor could be dead.
If you knew who harmed her, would you tell us?
Absolutely.
If she was dead right now and you knew, would you tell us?
I don't know.
Did you harm her?
Understandably, this turn that the questioning took was very upsetting to Cassandra.
They asked me if I killed Taylor. And I lost it.
After interviewing Cassandra, the next person that the cops interview is Ashley. From the very beginning, Ashley seems super laid back, super cooperative, and is not the least bit nervous. She tells detectives that while she doesn't think anyone would have hurt Taylor, she was aware that Taylor had a drug problem, and that may have played a role in who she was hanging out with. If Taylor had gotten involved with a bad crowd, maybe that's why she hadn't been responding to anyone and seemed to have dropped off the face of the earth without a trace.
The only thing I worry about is with the drug situation. Like, I wouldn't even, if I didn't know about the drug situation, I wouldn't be worried about her. I would say Taylor's doing what Taylor does. But then that lifestyle becomes a different group of people.
Ashley might not have realized that law enforcement were already aware that she had been the last person to see Taylor on the day that Taylor disappeared. Cassandra had already informed them of this. She also had informed them of the whole situation with the money that Taylor had asked her to hold on to for her. But suspiciously, Ashley denies that the whole money agreement ever happened. She says that Taylor never actually gave her the money at all. Ashley also tells them that on the day that Taylor disappeared, they never stopped at the bank together like Taylor had told Cassandra they had planned. She said that they instead stopped at a bar because Taylor needed to unwind and wanted to have a drink to help her do that.
Have you ever seen her drinking at that time of day before? That was odd behavior.
And in fact, I said something to her. I was like, beer at this time of the morning? She was like, well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
This was around where the interview ended for that particular day. But the cops had certainly not ruled out Ashley as a suspect. If anything, they were becoming more and more suspicious that she may know more about what happened to Taylor than she was letting on. As they began to dig deeper and take a closer look at Ashley's past phone logs, they find evidence that proves that their suspicions are right. Ashley has not been telling the whole truth. At least, not about the timeline of what happened the day Taylor went missing. They know this because they can look at her phone logs and get a pretty clear idea of where she was that day and when. So they bring this information up to her to see what her reaction is.
You know, we've turned up some things that we don't really know what to think at this point.
Ashley seems to have prepared herself for this possibility because if she's nervous, she isn't letting it show on her face at all.
The ability to plot all your phone calls for that day. But when we started plotting all the phone calls that you and Taylor we're making that day. There were some discrepancies in what you had told us.
One of the things they know Ashley lied about was the whole money thing between her and Taylor. But Ashley tells them that the only reason she didn't say anything about it was because Taylor had asked her to keep it between the two of them, and she wanted to respect that. But that's not even the lie that the detectives are most concerned about. They are way more interested in the fact that Ashley took Taylor to her family's farm out in the country that day and then didn't bother to tell them about it. The fact that she lied about this makes the investigators really convinced that she knows exactly where Taylor is. They start to hit her with even more hard-pressing questions.
Where is Taylor at? You need to tell us where she's at.
I don't know where Taylor is. I don't know where Taylor is.
But Ashley isn't backing down, and neither are the investigators.
The only one that was with her on this day at this farm that you did not disclose to us.
I didn't do anything to
Say this, if she's at that farm, we're going to find her because we're executing a search warrant out there right now.
That's fine, but she's not going to be there.
Even though Ashley keeps insisting that if detectives go out to the farm and search for Taylor, they aren't going to find anything, she must be starting to get at least a little nervous at this point. She refuses to answer any more questions until she has an attorney present. And sure enough, just hours later, there would be an incredibly disturbing discovery.
Tragic update out of Escambia County, Florida tonight. The body of a private investigator missing for more than a month has been found.
Taylor has been in the back of the head and then dropped into a grave in a wooded area of the farm. At this point, the cops have everything they need to charge Ashley with Taylor's murder and arrest her. After all, this was Ashley's family's farm, and Ashley was the last person to have seen Taylor. But trying to convince a jury that Ashley actually did this to her friend was going to be much more difficult. Just by looking at her, you would never guess that she was a killer. Was it even possible?
I think one of the most difficult things to overcome was Ashley herself. She was this very small, very pretty, kind of meek, quiet-spoken female who'd never been in trouble. So from the outside looking in, no one would think that she would do something like this.
There was even one thing about this case that would be the most difficult for the members of the jury, and even just the general public to be able to wrap their heads around. Was it even possible for Ashley, considering how small of a woman she was, to not only lift Taylor's body and put it in the grave, but also lift a huge heavy block of concrete and pour it over the top of the grave? This was one of the things that made prosecutors and the victim's family worried that Ashley could be guilty and still possibly get away with all of this. While testifying in court, Cassandra would look over at Ashley, who she once considered a friend, and never once would Ashley make eye contact back at her.
Now, do you see Ashley MacArthur in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you please point to her and identify what she's wearing?
She's right here. She's wearing a black outfit. And then I looked at Ashley. Ashley never looked at me. Ashley was always looking down at her scribble pad.
In hopes of trying to make Ashley look innocent, her defense team tried to shift the blame to Cassandra. They tried to convince the jury that maybe Cassandra was just a jealous partner who didn't want Ashley and Taylor spending time together without her.
It's gotta be clear as day that I have nothing to do with this. And the fact that they still played that I could have possibly been somebody for the jury, that could have ruined my reputation, my professional career. They'll throw anything and everything out there.
But luckily for Cassandra and the prosecution team, there was more evidence against Ashley that was soon to come. It was delivered by several different witnesses who heard Ashley make some remarks about Taylor in the past that now made her look extremely guilty.
That this world would be better if Taylor wasn't here and that she wasn't a good person.
As it turns out, Ashley was hardly the friend that she had seemed at first. But not only that, she had made comments in the past about using a firearm to kill someone if she had to.
She said that she's too small to hurt anybody, she'd just shoot.
Remember, a firearm is what was used to kill Taylor, but all the evidence against Ashley doesn't end there. A witness also told the jury that Ashley had actually confessed to spiking Taylor's drink before, when they were all out at a bar. But Taylor noticed that her drink tasted weird, so she immediately spit it out. If Ashley admitted to having done something this creepy before, it definitely seemed likely that she could have done it again. But there is still one great big question left here. In order for the jury to actually find Ashley guilty, this question will have to be answered. The question is, if Ashley did do this, why? What motive would she have to kill her friend? Well, You remember that money that Taylor had Ashley hold on to for her? As it turned out, the reason Ashley had been hesitant to return the money was because she had already spent it all $35,000 worth of it. This is where even more of Ashley's secrets and lies start to come into play. Ashley had been cheating on her husband, Zach, with another man. This man's name was Brandon. And while they had been going out together, Ashley had literally been showering him with expensive gifts. Maybe this had been her way of keeping Brandon around, and she used Taylor's money to do it. Ashley had told Brandon about Taylor, and what she had said about her wasn't very nice.
She told me that the girl had ran off with her husband's money or something, and just gone.
And what else did she say about finding her?
That she told me they'll never find that, but she's gone.
Ashley is now looking guiltier than ever, but in order to seal her fate, the prosecution decides to play hours of her interrogation footage in court for the jury.
Ashley was almost kind of flirty, maybe a little playful with law enforcement.
Had she ever come on to you, or?
Taylor asked me one time if I would have a threesome with her and some guy, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Now knowing how much of a liar that Ashley was, it's easy to see her in a completely different light. Now she just looks like someone who is used to getting her way by manipulating other people.
That she had lied, and she got caught up in her lies and couldn't come up with excuses fast enough.
When both sides had given their final arguments and the case was handed over to the jury, nobody knew how things were going to turn out. Which side was the jury going to believe?
I think it definitely was hard to picture how this little girl could move a dead body. But at the same time, Taylor was not a big girl either. I think where there's a will, there's a way.
Everyone in the courtroom held their breath when the verdict was finally published in the courtroom.
Verdict as to the charge in count 1, we the jury find the defendant, Ashley MacArthur, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm as charged in the indictment. So say we all.
To Cassandra, Taylor's family, and everyone involved, the verdict brought a huge sense of relief.
Trying to fight back all the tears and all the emotions and everything that I had been through.
Ashley had been convicted of her best friend's murder, but there was still one last piece of justice that would have to be carried out before this story was over. That part was the sentencing. Ashley was given one last chance to speak up for herself in court before learning her fate, but she declined.
Ms. MacArthur, I want to make sure that I ask you personally, do you want to say anything to the court? Okay.
Ashley remained completely stoic and emotionless when her sentence was read aloud.
Ashley MacArthur, having been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, I am going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you to life with a mandatory minimum 25 years state prison.
Finally, justice had been served. Why do you think Ashley took things so far as to kill her own best friend in hopes of being able to keep that $34,000? Was it just because of greed, or could there have been more? Let us know what you think in the comments below.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
Just like with a lot of other jobs, cops sometimes receive praise and recognition for a job well done. A lot of times this is for working hard to get dangerous people off the streets and make the community safer for everyone else. This was the case for Zachary Wester, a former cop of North Florida. During his time working for the force, Zachary had made a very large number of drug busts. So in other words, he was able to nab a lot of people for possessing dangerous and illegal drugs like narcotics and get them locked up. Because of this, he got a lot of praise and respect from the community. This would have been a good thing if the people that Zachary had been arresting were actually drug dealers, but spoiler alert, they were completely innocent.
It appears to be an illegal narcotic. Do you know anything about that? I do not.
What Zachary had been doing was pulling people over, telling them he needed to search their vehicle, and then planting illegal drugs in their cars. He would then pretend like he had just discovered the drugs, present them to the drivers, and of course the drivers would have no idea how the drugs ended up in the car. So basically Zachary was ruining innocent people's lives by framing them and then getting them thrown in jail after they did nothing wrong. He was doing this all to make himself look good by getting so many arrests. At first, nobody seemed to think anything of this particular officer being behind such an abnormally high amount of drug busts. But as time went on, it eventually raised some red flags and led to an investigation. This time, Zachary was the one who ended up being caught red-handed.
All of the drivers denied owning the drugs, but yet most were subsequently arrested. The arrest caused suspicion internally, and in 2018, Wester was suspended.
On his own body camera, there was footage of Zachary planting the drugs in people's cars. He would hide a plastic baggie containing drugs in one of his hands and then slip it into the vehicle and act like he had just found it there. Zachary ended up being arrested and charged with racketeering, fabricating evidence, misconduct, false imprisonment, and possession of drugs and paraphernalia. He pleaded not guilty. While in court, the prosecution played the footage of Zachary planting the drugs and asked him to explain himself. Even though there was clear proof showing what he did, he just continued to stick to his original story and say that he found the drugs, he didn't put them there.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
Maybe he thought he would be able to get away with this, just like he had gotten used to getting away with locking up innocent people all of this time. But luckily, when the case went to the jury, they saw through all of his lies and convicted him of every single charge. Can you imagine getting arrested and thinking your whole life is over after you literally did nothing wrong? It must be a pretty horrible and helpless feeling. Well, that is the feeling that Zachary gave to countless innocent victims. These are people who knew that just because a cop accused them of doing something they didn't do, there was a good chance that they would be spending years behind bars. Not only did Zachary Wester falsely accuse people and cause them lots of legal trouble, but he ruined people's reputations and stole time away from their loved ones that they would not be able to get back. One of Zach's victims, an older woman, came forward to share a victim impact statement ahead of his sentencing.
You've robbed me of my credibility being a mother and a grandmother for the last 3 years. I've probably missed 1.5 years of my grandbaby's life because of this.
Even after all the horrible things that he did to her, she told him that she was still choosing to forgive him.
I wish you no ill will, and you'll never know what you've done to me until you have children of your own, so.
Even though some of his victims were able to forgive him, that didn't mean that he wouldn't still have to face justice for what he did. The judge ended up sentencing him to 12.5 years behind bars. To some people, this sentence may seem harsh, but to a lot of people who were affected by Zachary's actions, this hardly seemed enough. After all, if he hadn't been caught, there's a good chance that there would still be innocent people facing drug charges because of him. Do you think this sentence was fair? Let us know what you think. Wayne Jenkins is pretty much the definition of a cruel, greedy, and corrupt cop. This officer from Baltimore, Maryland was the ringleader of a group of 8 cops that was called the Elite Gun Trace Task Force. Instead of helping people in his community the way he promised to do when he was sworn into the force, Wayne and his fellow officers were the real monsters of the city. For years, they would frame innocent people by planting drugs on them and having them arrested. They lived a life of pure organized crime, stealing from people, fabricating evidence, selling drugs, and getting away with it. They used their position of power to manipulate and bully other people. There was nothing their victims could do, too, because after all, these bullies were cops.
Look at me. I'm Sergeant Wayne Jenkins of Gun Trace Task Force. I'm assigned to Baltimore City Police Department.
The illegal activity of Wayne and the rest of his team was all captured on their own body cameras. As time went on and they continued to get away with their crimes, Wayne and his network of criminals got even more cocky, and their activity got even more dangerous. It eventually led to the death of a member of the community, a man named Albert Davis. On April 28th of 2010, Albert was 86 years old, was struck and killed by a driver who was trying to get away from these corrupt cops. The 2 men who were in the car that struck Albert were attempting to escape several members of this illegal task force after they had boxed them in using unmarked vehicles in a parking lot. Albert's tragic death was just one of the many tragic results of the harm this group of corrupt cops caused their community. Luckily, however, Wayne and his gang of cronies was eventually taken down. Their downfall began when a drug dealer named Antoine Washington, who had close ties to the group, ended up getting arrested and later convicted. When investigating Antoine, real detectives used wiretapping to gain information, and they ended up finding out about all the illegal activity Wayne and his group of corrupt cops had been getting into. When the news broke and the officers were arrested, it shocked the community. But even more importantly, it made people not want to trust any members of law enforcement at all.
Do you trust the police department after what your family has been through?
No, sir. No, never.
Can anything change that?
I don't think so. Not now.
There was evidence on top of evidence that proved what Wayne and the rest of his gang had done. Listen to this disturbing audio recording of Wayne's voice. It didn't take long to figure out that he had been the ringleader behind all of this.
How about we just go on things and just act like, oh, is everything okay? You get what I'm saying?
All 8 cops that were involved eventually did face justice for what they did, but it was Wayne who people seemed to be the most concerned about getting punishment he deserved. If you thought you didn't already like Wayne Jenkins, you're about to find him even more disgusting in just a moment. Wayne was offered a plea deal, which he took. This led to him being sentenced to 25 years behind bars. But this isn't the shocking part. The truly unbelievable part of the story is the fact that he never showed any true remorse whatsoever for the lives he had ruined. When he was given a chance to speak in an interview for BBC after he was sentenced, he bragged about his past.
I was a cop for 14 years, and I was the best. The best in the city, the golden boy. No one could get from guns like me.
If there's one thing that these corrupt cops have proven, it's that just because you wear a badge and swore to protect the city doesn't mean that you are a good person. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.